G'day everyone, it's me, the anti-theocrat, here with a simple one today. We're just going to read our way through one article, and I know we've covered this topic in other articles before, but I think we need to keep this stuff up front, because there are a lot of people out there who seem to think that social justice went away because of the... a little cough. Well, I hate to inform them that it hasn't, and that it appears in very, what I would think is probably a reputable news source for a lot of people. So the Bloomberg, in their Business Week section, not in their opinions where it should be, but in Business Week, has said that women are bearing the brunt of coronavirus disruption. Oh, they're being disrupted, the poor dears. Boo fucking who? Now, Janet writes, and who'd have thought it was a woman writing this, and look, we're being nurses in India. Boo-hoo. No doctors being shot in photos going to work together or anything. Nope. None of that matters when you can put up a heart-wrenching photo of Indian women with masks on going to work. Look, this woman ain't got a mask on. What's she up to? God, she's invincible. Doesn't she know she's suffering? In strict medical terms, the new coronavirus seems to have hit men harder than women. So we start right up front with the statistics that say men are being hit at higher rates than women. Yes. The men make up a slight majority of the infected. 2.8% to 1.7% is not slight over billions of people. Okay? You can put it up as a percentage and pretend it's not a great deal, but it is. One theory is that men, particularly in China, are more likely to smoke cigarettes. I'm sorry, but smoking in the Western world is down massively. And yes, Chinese men do smoke an awful lot. But China's percentage is actually not a lot more significant than men elsewhere in the world. But it's nice that you tried to blame this on the fact that men are more likely to smoke. It's men's fault that they get sick and die. But it's bugger all of men. After all, it's only 2.8% of population of contagion. Sorry. So, 45,000 people. Was only 2.8% of that died, whereas women were only 1.7%, The women are suffering, don't worry. Cardiovascular disease is highly correlated with coronavirus fatalities. Is also more prevalent in men, right? So our biology makes us unimportant? Is that what you're saying? Because we have a higher risk of cardiovascular disease, it doesn't matter that men die more frequently. Is often more prevalent in men, but as the virus spreads globally, it appears women are bearing the brunt of the social and economic disruption. That's right. It's not that these women in India are probably, if not married, very capable of being married to a man who will support them, who will have to fork out a dowry to their family, because India, fucking dowry laws are killing men left, right and centre. So, these women can rely on other people to look after them. They can just simply open their legs and beg a man to provide for them. Now, which man do you think is capable of doing that? Which man do you think is not going to be at the forefront of his family's earning needs, the needs of any of these women who open their legs? And guess where he's going to be? Out in the workforce, travelling, to and from work, working around other people, sometimes without being able to separate from them. I've worked in many a confined space with other guys. So yes, the poor women are suffering the social and economic disruption. The men have no fucking economic woes at all. And as to being social, well, they weren't social in the first place anyway, were they? They had to go to work. Huh. The vast majority of nurses, flight attendants, teachers, and service industry workers are female. All the nice, cushy jobs. All the jobs that don't require you to go and die for a living. All the jobs that don't add to your health difficulties, that make you more susceptible to diseases when they come about. Forget the fact that biologically it is being shown that men do have a less active system where it comes to diseases and germs and things. What do you call it? The thingo system. Fucking hell, that word just gone. Yeah, so immune. Men's immune system is not as active as women's. And this is coming out in quite a few studies. At home, women do more caretaking, and so when the virus closes schools, restricts travel, and puts aged relatives at risk, they have more to do. I would like to report at this point that I am an at-home father. I have been an at-home father, raising my 2 sons for the last 22 years. I do not think this is that big a burden. And I think if you were to allow a man to take your place and you stayed in the workplace, he would quite happily do it. But you don't allow that. You don't care to hear about that. You don't want the insecurity of relying on your meagre part-time job. So yes, I know it's terrible when you have to look after your own kids. I'm sorry. I started a business. I volunteered my services left, right and centre. I ran a radio station as a presenter, as everything from manager, presenter, technician. I found heaps of time to do a lot of things and raise my sons. In fact, I included my sons in my business activity. I built some of it around them. Don't give me this fucking it's hard to stay home and look after your kids. Oh, and it restricts your travel. Oh, poor you. The challenge of the emergency really puts additional strain on existing inequalities. Yeah, the existing inequalities that are there because you won't let men stay home and take the role of carer. Because you assume that you are the people who need to do that job. And you assume that he can just keep earning you money to support you in that position. And for those of you in places like Australia who don't have a he, you are quite happy to rely on his tax money, the guy you don't fuck. You will rely on his money coming to you through the government, because men pay the biggest part of the tax burden. And men are supporting your ability to stay home and look after your children. And in a place like Australia where you can get child support and family payments of all sorts and kinds and descriptions, things I don't apply for, so I can't tell you what the fuck they are, but I know they're out there and I know I would qualify. You will take this shit and you won't even give it a second thought who earned that money for you, but he's not getting to fucking wet his dick in you, is he? Says Laura Adati, a policy specialist in women and economic empowerment, so nothing of a biased nature at all, for the International Labour Organisation, so nothing of a biased nature at all for what might be considered a policy-making platform. If there's not already an egalitarian sharing of children, childcare or housework, it will be the women who are responsible for remote school, for ensuring there's food supplies and coping with this crisis. I, again, am an at-home father. I have been homeschooling my youngest son. I have been responsible for making sure there are food and supplies, to which we haven't had a problem. I know you're all fucking freaking out. You all freaked out at the start of this and raced out and bought up all the fucking bog roll. I hope it tasted good. But I keep a stock of food in the house. I've never found that to be a problem. So, and a stock of food that will last me through the next month if I don't shop for a month. So, aren't you doing this normally? What the fuck do you do? But I will bring forward the alligatory, oh fucking hell, the sharing of income earning, the sharing of responsibility for paying for the mortgage, the rent, whatever the fuck the earning is that will fall mainly on men who will still have to leave the home and be at risk to earn that money. 8 out of 10 nurses are women. Right, so 2 of them are men. But in any case, we're talking about nurses here. We are talking about a small sector of the employment group, especially in the care sector. You will find that amongst ambulance crews, women are not so highly represented. At least they never have been in the time since I was working in ambulances. I was with St. John Ambulance as a cadet, and I worked on ambulances. So, yeah, there were few women working ambulances. It was mainly men working ambulances, and I do not believe that that has significantly changed. I know there are women out there working them, but for fuck's sake, don't play this game of the nurses. What about the doctors? The doctors are what? The ambulance drivers, the ambulance crews are what? Primarily what? Eleanor Hill, a professor of nursing in the Chinese University of Hong Kong in 2003, collected the first-person accounts of student nurses during the SARS epidemic. May I point out that I have a relative who was a nurse. She climbed all the way up to surgical nurse, which is the highest you can go. She was amongst the highest of nurses in this country, and she no longer does it. She found it was too stressful and too hard on her. She no longer nurses. I don't know much about my family, but I know that much. So, when we're talking about nurses, again, we're talking about just one part of the thing. We're not talking about all of it. During the SARS epidemic, which was much smaller than this current one, did the other healthcare workers have any say anywhere about anything? Did anyone, because this is a professor of nursing, did she ask the ambulance drivers if they had any issues? They detailed the confusion, anxiety and stress of long days with patients and of watching colleagues fall ill. Some slept in the hospital both to care for the sick or to protect their own families. Okay, I don't need to read the rest of that because I've been over this. I understand the stresses of nursing. I'm not immune to the difficulties of being in these positions. But are they the only ones? Are they... All right, my father worked on news crews, and one day they arrived at an accident scene. The motorcycle rider had managed to clip himself around a pole on the side of the road, a signpost, and it decapitated himself. Now, that person is never going to be in the care of a nurse. Who do you think is going to face the most stress when they arrive on the site and have to put that together. My father himself was run over on his motorcycle by a Ford Fairlane, a 70s one, so the big bastards, and was in pieces. It took them an hour to scrape him up off the road. The ambulance crew could not work out how to pick him up. His hip was in such a disarray. His legs were splayed all over the joints. Do you think by the time he gets to the hospital and he's been straightened out and got safely to the hospital, that the nurses are dealing with that first point of contact, that first tragedy, the really ugly side of this? I tell you who suffered the most for the motorcycle rider. Apparently another commercial news crew. Dad worked for the government. But a commercial news crew rocked up and they parked closer to the accident. The driver jumped out and almost landed on the head. Yes, one of Dad's favourite stories to tell back in the day. But in any case, it's ambulance drivers who hit the first and the worst of everything. So, yeah, I understand how bad these things can be. And I worked ambulances. I understand the stress of working with people who are, falling ill. I'm not immune to this shit, but you are only focusing on nurses because that's what you want us to see. Oh, look, some mummies with masks. At an airport, at an international airport. That's nice, isn't it? Were they flying in or out and taking it with them or bringing it home? As part of the containment effort, 15 countries have closed schools nationwide, affecting more than 300 million kids. Yeah, I know. For most families, that constitutes a crisis all its own right. Yeah, and? In Hong Kong, where schools have been closed since February 3rd, many parents, mostly mums, have become de facto homeschoolers, and me too, managing remote classes and email assignments along with their own professional responsibilities, and me too. On Facebook and in group chats, their troubleshot glitches and Zoom or Google Classrooms or Swap Tips, or get fucked. Get fucked with your fucking list of shit. I hate the school contacting me. They give me a little pack of work to work through. I fucking work through that with my son, then we work on our own shit. But because our Department of Education has decided that the school have to check on us to make sure that there's no kids not in school, I get these fucking text messages that I have to send back a W for working. I could send back an NW or an S for not working or sick. But which fucking idiot parent's doing that? I don't want them to disturb me. For the duration, my son has been put back in my care. I am relying on the school to provide me work for him to do. But he is in my care. Fuck right off. I know how to do that. My eldest is fucking in his 20s. I have done this before. It's no fucking mystery. And if the Chinese are so tied up in all this extra crap, by the way, I'm doing extra crap as well, but if they're all tied up in that extra crap, that's because the Chinese don't know how to fucking let go. They over-educate. It's like the Japanese. In 10 years' time, you will see Chinese kids locking themselves in their bedrooms or jumping off fucking bridges because they're not succeeding at life. All right. Some companies have begun to realise that the spread of COVID-19 is a disease caused by the virus. Okay, so this is about nice people who can afford to, giving people money to stay home or holidays or sick leave or whatever in the fuck it is to go. Well, that's nice. But do you know who employs most people? Do you know where the biggest employment sector is? It's small business. And small business cannot afford to be closed and pay your fucking rotten little ass who does a casual job for them for 3 hours a fucking day. So you can go and pick your kiddies up after school. Advocates for equality. Advocates for fucking women's superiority. Let's not get over this. You fucking assholes are just talking about women. You don't care what this has done to men. You don't even fucking care that more men die. Since you mentioned men at the top, you have not once said this puts a burden of working extra hours for extra money on men or whatever in the fuck else it is that men are suffering through this, because you haven't given a fuck to find out. So don't tell me you're about equality. Hope this global health crisis will result in even more distribution of professional and domestic caretaking. Get fucked. The choices you make are the choices you make. There is no wage gap. There is no gap of professional or domestic caretaking. You make the choices. I, many years back, established a routine where I did not cook dinner every night. I'm currently on a 3-night rotation where we can swap occasionally or buy takeaway occasionally if we don't want to cook. But we're on a 3-night rotation where the adults in the house cook. And I get one of 3 nights. You could establish this with your husband, even if he just makes pasta every fucking time he cooks. Or you could instruct him on how to cook things. Maybe you could spend some time together in the kitchen, both of you learning. This is choices you make. Don't fucking put this on the rest of the world. And it's not about equality, because you're choosing to let somebody else pay for you to be at home. Before the US entered the World War II in 1940, 28% of American women worked outside the home. So it was quite significant even back then. It wasn't a small number. 28% is not a small percentage, given that women were essentially considered to be homekeepers. 5 years later, 37 did, a percentage that ticked upwards for decades, destroying the fucking wage economy. Just for the record, this destroyed the wage economy. Not the single women or the young women of the 28% of American women who worked. No, the increasing number who've decided they can put their kids in daycare and go and work. So they're working for half the money they're earning because the other half goes to looking after their kids. And the money that they earn means that the family income is bigger. So for the last 10 to 20 years, governments and economies haven't had to raise wages. We've had wage stagnation because of dual income households, destroying any chance that a family like mine with an at-home parent can make it in the world anymore. My parents raised 2 sons, bought a house, and lived reasonably comfortably on one income, a low income. My father chose never to rise above level 3 in the public service. He worked shifts to bring in extra money. I couldn't do that now. I have a partner who is in management, in council, in local government, and we are considered poor enough that I could apply for benefits, which I refuse to do. But you destroy this, moving people into the workforce without allowing the other half of the population, the men, to exit the workforce, is what fucked over the wage economy. In Japan, the tsunami and nuclear meltdown of 2011 drew the attention of the needs of single dads. Oh, shut up, bloody phone. Single dads in the country, and prompted broader social emphasis on active father. Get fucked. You don't want fathers to be active. Or you do. What you want is them to work and be active. What you're talking about here is single dads. These men don't have any choice but to be active. This is like a single mum. This is not an ideal situation. This is just a situation. But what you're saying is that men have to spend more time with their kiddies. Yes, you don't fucking want it. You want the income that supports your ability to choose to work less hours, hence the wage gap. It changed men's sense of value in housework participation. Housework participation. This is the most fucked up piece of feminist shit I've ever fucking heard. You ever looked at what they call housework participation? Who in my house do you think unblocks toilets, refits taps, goes out and does any heavy lifting around the yard, does any guttering, emptying? Who the fuck do you think does that? What do you think is more dangerous, vacuuming or getting up on the roof to do a repair? Don't give me this fucking housework participation shit. You're doing the dishes is not that extreme. Some idiot who represents a father in Japan. Yeah, soy boy. The coronavirus will have a similar social impact. I don't think it will, because you haven't let the men out of the workforce. You have not sent them home. You're just moaning that the nurses still have to go to work. If so, whether the changes persist is another question. In the wake of the 2008 financial crisis, necessity pushed more women into the workforce. The 2008 financial crisis was time enough that we already had wage stagnation. More women were pushed into the workforce, only enforcing the approval, the acceptance of wage stagnation. And why was the financial crisis so bad? Because nobody's got any fucking savings anymore, because wage stagnation. People can't afford to pay for their fucking houses. Don't work for a fortnight and you miss a payment. Because wage stagnation. Conferring more childcare responsibilities on newly unemployed men. Right. So we're talking about a situation where men actually ended up out of the workforce and had the opportunity not to choose to be at home. Their parents didn't, their partners didn't choose for them to be there. This was enforced. This is not a normal situation. Women do not offer men the right to stay home. Women have always been my worst enemy as a at-home father. Nobody has abused me quite the same as the women who are happy to say to your face, go to work and support your family like you are meant to. This was a different situation because this was men who had been forced out of the workplace by circumstances. They had no savings because wage stagnation, and women had to enter the workforce mainly, I suspect, in part-time jobs to support their families until the men could go back to work. Tell me that's not the real situation. You spun this as if women entered the workforce voluntarily and men exited the workforce voluntarily to take care of kids. This was a forced situation. There is no way the majority of women would allow their men to exit the workforce so that they can do the earning. People like me are fucking oddballs. But as the economy improved, most households reverted to the pre-crisis division of labour. Just what I fucking said. Exactly what I fucking said. Because the women didn't want to be working part-time jobs for pathetic wages. They wanted the man to go to work to make the big money. So there was no choice here. The man did what men do. He stepped up to the plate and did the childcare because he will do whatever it takes for his family. And you, through this entire article, have wanted to underwrite the responsibilities that men take for their families, the difficulties they put themselves in for their families, the things that damage their house and make them the health and make them more susceptible to coronavirus. You've wanted to just brush over all of that and ignore it. Because women suffer more. Get fucked. The coronavirus crisis is an opportunity to challenge entrenched social dynamics in a way that benefits both women and men. Trust me, women don't need more benefits. It's men who need to be given choices, and they don't have any. We have to think for ourselves as all being care providers and all being care recipients. So you want to work your casual job, you want to pick the kids up from school, you want to go and have coffee with the other mums, and trust me, I'm a fucking at-home father, I see what the mums do. You want to go and have coffee with the other mums, or a natter at the park while the kids just go feral, or whatever it is that you do so you can ignore the kids when they come home. And what you want is dad to make the big money, but also to come home and take care of the kids so you don't have to do it. You've been ignoring them as much as possible. And I see this shit happen. I'm a hands-on father. I'm so far ahead of the schoolwork that don't get sent home, it is fucking ridiculous. I have always done what I can for my children. Thrown myself into that job. And I watch mothers do anything they can to avoid it. There's a woman over the road from me. She walks up and down the path with her new baby in the pram, and I think she's got another one on the way, and she's got 2 other kids, and she's been sending them to school this whole time because she never fucking spends any time with them. Their grandfather lives up the road just a bit from them, and when she can, they're allowed to run feral on the street, providing their grandfather is watching over them. Now, he's fucking crippled up. He's in the house all day. These kids are just running the streets. This is not unusual for women to avoid their children. I don't do that. I include my children in the things I do. I actually have a great respect for homeschooling mums who throw themselves at their kids to make their kids their lives. And I think that's a fucking shitty thing to do. I think you've got to have your own life. But compare that to people like you, who would shirk your responsibilities to your children and ask your hard-working husband to come home and take care of the kids, do the dishes for you and fucking mop the floors, because you want to shirk all your fucking responsibilities. You want to pass them on to somebody else. It should be our responsibility. You don't fucking know what responsibility is. It should be our responsibility to make sure everyone can take care of himself, his loved ones, and make sure the workplace is a safe place for everyone. Get fucked. Get fucked. Seriously, go and get fucked. You're not talking about workplaces. You're talking about women not getting everything you think the little princesses are due to get. And the Prince Ugly, the working father, or the, paying but not even getting the pussy father, the taxpayer who's not even getting fucking a look at you. You want them to keep doing their thing, being the providers for the poor princesses. And when the princesses happen to be nurses and they've got a little bit of hard work to do, oh, it's so fucking sad while the men drop dead. Did I say I get really sick of this fucking shit? I have a lot of respect for nurses. I have a lot of respect for people in care jobs. I could not work at an oldies centre. I do not think I could take that. I have a lot of respect for these people. But don't pretend they are the only people who keep the world running. Don't pretend they're the only people putting themselves in danger for other people's care and every man who goes to work in a factory that's spitting hot iron or electricity or whatever in the fuck around the place, right? I've worked in some fucking horrid environments with molten cyanide and shit. You think I didn't do that? You think I did it because I loved it? Or do you think that when I got out of the workforce and I set up a small business doing entertainment work, that I was actually doing what I wanted to do. I was no longer the wage earner. I no longer had the responsibility to pay the bills. But I found something I liked to do. It paid for family holidays. It paid for toys and things for my kids. Do you think that working in heavy industry was what I wanted to do with my life? Fucking hell. All right. I said I'd make it a short and ranty one, or single article one. I've done that. I'm getting out. I've got a son to get back to homeschooling. I've been the anti-theocrat. May your gods remain fictional, and I will see you in the next one.